I was a primetime anchor. I also had the first media and presentation skills school in the country. So a lot of the talent who are now on air went through my school. The year, in 1994, I don't know how many of you remember that Nelson Mandela became president in 1994. Did anybody see the movie Invictus? It was an incredible time to be in South Africa because apartheid was officially over. For the first time, we were so proud to be South Africans, and life was pretty spectacular. So one cold Thursday night, 1997, we get a call that a friend of ours has had 5 armed guys burst into his house, torture him with a burning iron, and they said Rob is in critical condition and not expected to live. And he didn't. A couple of seconds later, my mother, who is with me today visiting from South Africa, called and said a lawyer we knew very well, who'd been very active in the anti-apartheid movement, had been hijacked and murdered. So in that moment, my husband looked at me and said, look, we've got an opportunity to move to America, particularly Atlanta, because we had won our green cards in the lottery. How many people in this room were not born in the United States of America? Wow. Where were you born? China? China, Poland, who else? Egypt? Pakistan? Kurdistan? Denmark? Iran? If the country you were born in hasn't been mentioned, let us know. The Netherlands. Welkom. Netherlands in Afrikaans, daar is, jy kan verstaan. Panama. I've been to Panama. Haiti. Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. Where else? We really have the United Nations in this room. Romania. Anybody born in a country not yet mentioned? Germany. So you know anybody who has moved countries and continents, and for me, sides of the road, what that brings, right? But the reality is, how many of you are at school in a different city to where your parents are? Okay? So the reality is you may not live in the same city that you were raised in. And the truth is, when you change cities or jobs, what do you give up the most? What do you think I gave up the most when I left South Africa? Friends, a network. I remember when I started my business in South Africa, and if you go onto my website, which is Nadia Speaks, there is a picture of my young daughter and I on the front page of the Sunday Times. Because the editor of the Sunday Times had gone to high school with me. That's what it is to have an organic network. Now, for the young man who was born in Egypt, living here, maybe in Egypt, I don't know if people go to school, grow up in the same area, but in America, people tend not to. They tend to grow up in one place, then go to school in another place, and possibly find work in another place. So you don't necessarily have the benefit of an organic network. Is anyone in this room working in the same city that they grew up in? One person, 2 people, 3, 4. Where are you employed? Hope, grad school. And you may get a job where? Which city? Miami, and you'd like to stay in Miami. But do you understand what I'm saying is we live in a very mobile society. We have to create our own network. And when I came here in 1997, I had to start again. I went from being a household name. I remember doing a class for BMW cars, and I said, don't you want me to tell them what I'm going to do with you? And they said, no, don't worry, we've seen you on TV. I went from that visibility to anonymity. So really what I want to share with you today is my personal experience of recreating a network. Through trial and a lot of error, I wish I'd known when I started what I know now through a lot of teaching and experience and audiences like you who've taught me so much. But it's been an experience because I had to start again. And the reality is everyone in this room knows how to network. You wouldn't have got to where you've got if you weren't already a relationship builder, and in this particular group that I'm speaking to now, if you weren't already pretty brilliant. Now, I can't say that to a lot of audiences that I speak to, but I can say that to you. So I don't often offer you a lot of revelation today. I know through teachers and through parents, everyone said you really should network, right? What I'm hoping to do is to tell you how to do it better than you are right now. You're already doing it. But I love Emerald, you know, the chef. Just before he adds flavor to food, and before he says bam, he says, let's kick it up, huh? That's why we're here. I can honestly say when I was driving here with my mother today, I said, this is the best and brightest of what America has to offer right here in this room. But how do you build better relationships? Because, as I mentioned to you earlier, I wouldn't be standing in front of you if I didn't have the ability to make these connections. And in fact, when I arrived in Atlanta, I only knew one person, and that was the head of security at CNN Center. And the only reason I knew, in fact, of him was that he knew of the head of security at Mnet Television when I was an anchor. And it was through handing him my demo tapes that I started anchoring at CNN. So the first point I want to make to you all is you just never know where the contact comes from. You know, sometimes you think it's a higher up or an important person, but sometimes it's the security guard. So I know you've heard that before. Everybody is a potential networking opportunity, but truly they are. So let's step back for a moment and look at what networking is. We had a choice in this room. You could either see me or see the slides. So if you can't see the slides, what that slide does say is connection, conversation, collaboration. And that's what networking is. If I were to break it down into 3 phases, it was your ability to connect with more people than you are right now, one's ability to have real meaningful conversations, and ultimately what networking is a collaboration. What I learned when I came here in 1997 was people who go, hello, Arcelius, what can you do for me? Those people are not networkers. Those people are what we call networking mongrels. You know, the type that always want to know what you can do for them. That's what not networking is. Networking is as much about being a go-giver, an investor, as it is about being a go-getter. I'm going to repeat that networking, true relationship building, is as much about being a go-giver or an investor as it is about being a go-getter. Can we just have the light a little dim so that everybody can make sure that that slide is indelibly imprinted in your mind? What we want to do is we want to be able to connect with more people than we are right now. So in the time we have together, we'll talk about how do we start a conversation so that we do connect with more people. How do we reach out to somebody that we want to have access to? Finally, how do we have real conversation? And then are we as good as we need to be about offering what we have? Now, for example, I was talking to the young lady over there because suddenly I had left my power cord. Can you imagine you giving a presentation to a group of illustrious students such as yourselves, and you leave your power cord? And she was so helpful. So sometimes you have something to give that comes in a form that you don't necessarily think of. Now, when I say networking is as much being a go-giver as it is about being a go-getter, if I want to ask some advice or guidance of someone who I perceive to be in a higher position than myself. So let's say Terry Young from BES. And I say to her, Terry, you've been very successful in navigating your way through the organization. What advice or guidance do you have for me because I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z? What am I giving Terry? A compliment. If you have a professor or somebody at a company or somebody you meet at this conference and you know they've been very successful, and you literally go up to them and say, Max, I've admired the way you have conducted your career. It's something that I am aspiring towards. Do you have any suggestions as to how I should proceed? That is a sentence that I learned very early on when I came here. Because people were much more open if you approached them that way than if you said, hello, Tyler, can I have access to your network now? Right? So please remember that sentence. Compliment the person. It needs to be sincere and authentic. You can't gush or you can't fabricate something that isn't sincere. But giving somebody respect is a very valuable thing. And if you do genuinely admire somebody, ask them for advice and guidance, and then open it up to them as to how they help you. Now, do we have consensus in this room that your ability to network, in other words, let's just take a step back and look at the definition of networking. Your ability to nurture your existing relationships. Do you know how many times I do seminars and workshops and we go through networking stories and people have had a career advancement or got a job because of a colleague or a fellow student, not because of someone higher up. So networking is about nurturing your existing network, but it's also the ability to network up, so to speak, and to bring new people into your network. Does anybody in this room have a story of they managed to get somewhere, either their graduate opportunity, or it could even be a part-time job, or something that they've either helped somebody achieve or somebody assisted them? Great. And your first name is? Vince. Vince, can you speak very loud and to the whole group?
I work in a clothing store. It's one of my jobs, and I have another job. And for our senior design project, I was talking to a physical therapist, and I had no clue. And so my networking, I talked to her, and now I'm going to physical therapy school, and I need shadowing hours, so she was a shadow.
That's a perfect example. You had a connection with her somehow when she came into the clothing store. Something about you said, this is somebody I want to network with. And then you had a conversation, and now she's assisting you. And I assure you she feels really good about it. Don't underestimate people's desire and sense of enjoyment in assisting you, if you do it in the right way. Anybody else? That was a great story. Here, let's have another networking story.
I was applying for a postdoctoral position at Georgia Tech, and the person that I emailed with the research I was interested in didn't have a spot available with faculty enrolled, so that's how I found that.
Okay, so again, there was something about you that made the person want to recommend you. And I'm going to ask everybody to do a bit of self-reflection right now and say, am I the kind of person I would recommend? Do I come across as somebody that other people would want to assist? Another great networking story. So we obviously have consensus in this room that the ability to build important relationships with our peers, with strangers, with family, with friends, with professors, with potential employers is critical to our career and life success, right? Else we wouldn't be sitting here. So if it's so critical, what stops us? I just want us to think for a moment, and I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you, and literally for a moment, I want you to ask the person next to you, what stops you doing a better job than you are right now? Approaching new people, starting conversations with someone in the passage, linking in with more people, as we spoke about earlier. What stops you? Just take a few seconds, the person next to you, what stops you personally expanding your network from where you are right now? Okay. I know we could probably carry on this conversation for a lot longer. You know, we say the amount of noise in a room is directly proportional to how much fun we're having. So I could tell this could be a very good day. So I'm curious to know, what were some of the things that came up? Okay, scared of being rejected, yes. Time. What else? When you really think about what stops you? Right, that is something that comes up so often. I don't want to be rude and I don't want to be needy, right? I don't want to have to ask somebody for something. That's why that sentence, Terry, you've been so successful with BMES. I'd be so grateful for some advice or guidance. It's such a great sentence because you really do bolster yourself against any rejection, and it's a very gracious way of approaching somebody. Very much so. And really, I want everybody to remember that every person started somewhere. And it's so easy to forget what you've achieved and remember what someone else has. So think about that. Everybody has a story. You also have your own story. What else stops you? You need to identify what stops you, because otherwise we'll never do it better than we are right now. So on that subject, can I have 2 volunteers, please? Okay, so a volunteer here and a volunteer there. Won't you join us over here? As the volunteers approach the stage, who is feeling relieved that you have not volunteered? Okay, won't you join us up here, gentlemen? Wes and Vince. Okay, you each get a copy of my book, which is a little book of big networking ideas, a guide to expert networking. Wes, where are you at school?
Syracuse University.
Syracuse and?
Florida Gulf Coast.
Florida Gulf, and you're doing the physical therapy? Yeah. And you are doing?
Bioengineering.
Bioengineering. Okay. That's it. Warm round of applause. Okay, and you're probably sitting there going, what was that all about? It was a very simple exercise. The exercise was, what went through your mind when I said, can I have 2 volunteers? Immediately you went, not me. And in fact, it took a beat until Wes and Vince actually stood up. And you know what? That is the exact same feeling that goes through you when you think, I really should approach this person. No, I'm not going to, because what if they reject me? So you know what? You don't even approach them. Now, human beings are very sophisticated. We are motivated by the extension of pleasure or the prevention of pain. Nobody voluntarily says, why don't you whip me? Why don't you hurt me? Why don't you cause me some pain? As I said to my last group, unless you've been reading 50 Shades of Grey. But generally speaking, the general population does not volunteer themselves for pain. So can you understand that you have to not let that emotional response sabotage you? So think about right now, who would it be valuable if you were on their radar? Someone at school, someone out of school, someone in the industry that you would like to meet. What is stopping you reaching out to them? What if they don't treat me in the way that I would like? Now, it is possible that they won't treat you in the way you'd like. And you know what? It simply boils down to that. But what is that? There's a wonderful quote that says, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the taking of action despite the fear. So who would it be helpful, valuable for you to reach out to? And you're not, because you're going, it could be uncomfortable. There's another famous saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you ask, you may not always get what you want, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So I'm just reminding everyone in this room that it's so important to have the courage, because there will be times that somebody is less than gracious or amenable, and it does hurt. In my book, there's actually a passage that shows that rejection is experienced in the same part of the brain as physical pain. Not that anyone in this room has ever been rejected, right? Because all of your lives have been perfect. It happens, but we survive rejection. You know, as I mentioned, when I moved here in 1997, I had to re-audition for things. Some things I got, some things I didn't get. But I had to keep trying. And you have to keep going. And some job interviews will go really well, and you'll walk out and go, I nailed it. And sometimes you walk out and you go, this is what I should have said, and that's what I should have said, right? But you can't stop. You know, it's so interesting. My friend has a little 10-month-old girl, and she's just starting to walk. Anybody know any kids just starting to walk? And she's at that age where she's pulling herself up 2 steps, and then she falls flat. And she falls flat, and she either cries or laughs. But she doesn't just sit there and go, okay, that's it. Never getting up again, right? So it's just our reminder that we have to have the courage to reach out. It does help if we're prepared and we know what we're going to say, and that if we have an interaction with someone that in our minds we view as more important than us, we do say, I've been curious to know, in your industry, what's your biggest challenge at the moment? Those kind of questions are very helpful. Or, I've really admired the way you've conducted yourself. I'm looking for some advice or guidance. But don't not do it because of that, because that very often is simply false evidence appearing real. So important also in the process of networking is the ability to light the fire. Now, does everybody have an orange flyer? Otherwise, Terry will hand you one. Everybody have an orange flyer? You don't? Just put your hand up if you need one. Stay up until you have one. And lighting the fire. And in fact, if one of you doesn't mind going to the back and helping Terry, that would be wonderful. Great. I wish I had more books, Terry. Then we'd give everybody who volunteered. So lighting the fire starts off with, and just keep your hands up until you have a flyer. Lighting the fire, the F of lighting the fire is feeling good about yourself. How you feel about yourself. Because the way you feel about yourself is so critical in your interaction with other people. Think about this. When you meet somebody and they look comfortable and confident in their own skin and they have a sense of ease about themselves, would you agree that you're far more likely to want to interact with them than somebody, and this is my favorite American expression, somebody who looks like life sucks, school sucks, and they wish they were somewhere else? You know those kind of people? Not anyone in this room, of course. So my point is, the way you feel about yourself is actually critical in networking, because people very quickly get a sense of you when they meet you. They go, something about Vince, when he interacted with this woman, said, this kid is a winner, I want to assist him. Because we will invest in people we think are going to do well and make us look good. It's an investment, right? So I'm asking you, when you meet somebody for the first time, particularly, do you come across as comfortable, at ease with yourself? Now, I'm not saying you have to walk around like you're on crack. You know those types, they're just far too happy. No. But I tend to find that if I'm having a bad day, I have a great technique. And a bad day happened to me when I first arrived here back in 1997. And I was doing overnight shifts for the CNN Airport Network. Has anybody ever done any overnight work? My favorite American expression, it sucks. So I'm doing the overnight shift, and I say to the CNN makeup artist, what does an anchor do if they're doing an overnight shift? She said, oh, you can have a nap in the makeup room. So I did. I had a few-second nap in the makeup room. The next day, the then head of the CNN Airport Network calls me and screams at me. You are not allowed to nap in the makeup room. Do you know that everyone in the building's talking about you? Now, I didn't know that the man was a megalomaniac, psychopath, who's subsequently been fired, but I was devastated, so devastated. And I looked at my watch, and it was 4 o'clock, and I had to be downtown at Georgia Public Television to do an audition at 4:30. And I got into my car, and I thought, how am I going to walk into this room looking like I'm confident and comfortable? So I started to visualize the following things. I thought about the Women in Film Awards that I'd hosted with Elfrey Woodard. And I thought about meeting and interviewing Nelson Mandela and Ted Turner. And then my children were small at the time, so I thought about them. When they became teenagers, I tried not to. So that's what went on my positive emotional memory disk. So by the time I walked into the audition, I was feeling a whole lot better about myself. And I did an improvisation, and I got the part, and a couple of years ago, the pilot aired. The reason I'm telling you all that story is I had a choice in that moment. I could have walked into that room and told them how depressed I was, how devastated I was, how upset I was, right? I may have got their sympathy because they were nice people. Do you think I would have got the job? No. So what I'm sharing with you is you are going to be going through probably a multitude of job interviews in the next couple of years of your life, right? When you walk in, and I've spoken to so many recruiters in every industry, from bioengineering to biotech to CNN to journalism, the same rules apply. When you have the same qualifications, and I'm going to choose between two individuals, I'm going to choose the one that looks like they are going to fit into this environment better, right? So how you come across, both in terms of what you say as well as how you say it non-verbally, is equally important. And we can sense that ease about yourself. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment and say, if you were feeling very nervous or anxious, what would go on your positive emotional memory disk? What would be, and am I pronouncing your name correctly, Aracelius? What is it? Aracelius. And Vince. And Tyler. What would you think about? What would go on your positive emotional memory disk? Now, by the way, having a positive emotional memory disk means every achievement that you have had over the last many years in your life, you can easily access. So suddenly, you're in the hallway out here, and you meet somebody that you've been so looking forward to meeting, and they're in a higher position than you are, and automatically your heart starts beating, and you go, I don't have a right to talk to this person. And then you slot in your positive emotional memory disk, and you go, you know what? Look what I've done. Right now, for where I'm at in my life, I've done well. One thing I know about every single, whether you're doing bioengineering or biotech or bio anything, is anybody here not doing anything related to bio or tech? Whatever it is, each person in this room would not be here if you did not have people who were exceptionally proud of you, right? You don't get to do what you've got and done and get the SAT scores or the ACT scores you got. So we forget that. It's the most interesting thing. You know, I was interviewing Anthony Hopkins a couple of years ago, and I walked into the interview, and it was a French journalist who had gone before me, and she said to me, Nadia, Mr. Hopkins, he was in a very bad mood. She was French. She said, my interview with him was so shit. And I thought to myself, I can't have a sheet interview because Mnet's paying me too much money. That was the television station in South Africa. So I walked in, and I played my positive emotional memory disc. I thought, okay, Nadia, here's a man who's a little more famous than you are, quite a bit richer, right? But in this moment, I've also got a story, and I treated him absolutely with equal status. I said to him, Mr. Hopkins, Matthew McConaughey says you are one of the most talented but organized actors he's ever worked with. Are you? And he said to me, really? Did he say that about me? But my point to you all is, I know some of you are undergrads, some of you are graduates. The reality is every single individual in this room has achieved enormous success to get where you have got in this incredibly competitive society. You are super smart. Don't forget that when you meet somebody. And again, I'm not saying you have to be arrogant, but don't forget your own achievements and only revere the person, because an interesting dynamic happens. We respond to people who treat us equally. If you are too in awe of somebody, they go, why is this person so in awe of me? So I'm asking you to think for a moment, what would go on your positive emotional memory disk? What is a Danielle moment? And it can be a series of moments. I don't want you to get to a job interview or meet someone that you think is important and stand there and go, I need to think of things that make me feel good about myself. It's not like that. You want to have your trophies, your awards, the time you got into grad school, the time you got a grant, the time you were accepted to this conference, whatever it is. I want you to think about those things and have them readily available so that you can exude a sense of ease and confidence. So let success vibrate within you, because feeling good about yourself is absolutely critical to networking. The next part of lighting the fire is showing genuine interest. Dale Carnegie said it so well. You know, he said people who talk about other people are bores, and people who talk about, he said people who talk about themselves are bores, and people who talk about other people are, it begins with a G, gossips. And he says people who talk about you are brilliant conversationalists. So don't underestimate showing genuine interest, which is questions like, you go into a job interview, or you meet someone in the passage and you say, Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so, I just heard you speak. I'm so curious, when you said that or when that happened to you, can you tell me more about that? How did it make you feel? Don't feel that when you go into a job interview, which is absolutely a form of networking, that you have to stand there and answer the questions. You have a conversation. You ask questions like, what's the biggest challenge going on in your industry right now? So show genuine interest and really listen. Very often when we get nervous, which we often are when we're meeting people we perceive to be more important than ourselves, we tend to talk and not listen. And what I want to share is there's as much power in sometimes just listening and asking questions than there is in speaking. Also remember, if you are finding it difficult to have a conversation with somebody, once you've initiated it, and you can initiate it in a multitude of ways. I'm going to have Arcelius, and if you don't mind coming to join us here, we're going to show how easy it is to initiate a conversation. Do you mind coming onto the stage? Thank you. Because now they know it's fun to volunteer. Okay, so we're going to have the two of them. You know, you go to the famous cocktail party scenario. So we are having a conversation, Danielle, and you have to come and interrupt us. So we're having a conversation, and you have to come and join us. So let's make sure everybody can see us. Here we are, standing here. Is it always so cold in here? I know. Do you think we can ask somebody to turn up the heat? Hello. Hi. Hi. Do you two know each other? You're...
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Danielle, Arcelius and I were just talking about the temperature. I don't know what it is about conference rooms, but they have to keep them at sub-zero. Don't you find that? I know, it's so cold. So where are you at school?
Clemson University.
Clemson, and you? Okay, so then you join us. Okay, yes. You know, these are the most awkward things about networking is everything. So you're at Clemson. That's so interesting. Okay. Hello. Hi, hi. Fine. Do you know each other?
Hi, I'm Nadia.
And I'm Nadia, and we were just saying it is so cold in here. You too. Now, why? Just freeze for a moment. Thank you to our volunteers. Aren't they lovely? What I want to show you is what happens is, in a situation like that, don't you feel awkward going up to people and interrupting them? Yeah. But you all did it quite comfortably. So, rule of thumb, if it's just two people and you've got a choice between just two or a group of three, go for the group of three. Because a group of three, the chances are not having a private discussion. If two people are huddled over here talking like that, it looks like their body language is saying don't interrupt, right? But if they're standing far apart and just casually, it is fine to go up to them and just go, hello. And you hope that somebody does what I just did. And I'm going to ask you to do that from now and forevermore. So thank you very much to our three. What I just did was I acted as the host. Because if I was coming to your house and you had guests, what's the first thing you would do? Introduce me to your guests. So if you've got three people standing up there and you've forgotten their names, how often does that happen? It's perfectly acceptable for you to go, do you two know each other? And you hope that you do what Danielle said, which is she went, I'm Danielle. The worst that happens is if you go, do you two know each other? And they go, no. Do you two know each other, she says, but I'm just asking you, whatever your personality, some of you in this room are natural extroverts. This is easy for you. Some of you are fundamentally more reserved. Now, people in the biotech world have the reputation of being more reserved. So can you imagine if you now have these social skills, what an advantage you're at? Because you've got the brilliance, the IQ, the intellectual intelligence, but then you have the EQ, the emotional intelligence, and that's how you become the CEO of the company. Because the higher up you get in an organization, the more it becomes about your emotional intelligence and the less about your intellectual quotient. So little things like wherever you are, even if it feels awkward at first, inviting somebody to join you, going, do you two know each other? Being the host of whatever scenario you're at. And remembering that each individual has three phases of their lives. We all have I once interviewed a boxer. I knew nothing about boxing and I knew nothing about him, but I knew he had What could you ask a boxer about his past? Right, what could I ask him about now? Tell me about a day in the life of Moses Sekhwali. What could I ask Tyler about now? Tyler, what do you like most about school? What do you like least? Tell me about an average day in your life. What's your biggest challenge? A question somebody asked recently to me was, what's the best day you've had in the last few years? Or what's an ideal day for you? These are just good tools to have, just good, easy conversational sentences. What could I ask a boxer about his future? Any plans once you're brain damaged? So what could I ask Tyler or Arcelius or Danielle about their future? Where do you hope to be? Where do you hope to live? What are the interests? Any vacations planned? But I want every single person in this room to leave today saying, social situations are not going to be awkward for me. They may feel initially uncomfortable because that same feeling of, can I have two volunteers, is the same feeling of when you walk into a party and there are all these people and you don't know anyone. You go, I feel like I'm 5 years old and no one's asking me to play. But you're not 5. You're now an adult, which means that you can go up to somebody. You know, I was at a school function for my older daughter recently, and I walked in, and for a moment I thought, it felt like no one was going to ask me to dance, you know? And I thought, you know what, hi, tell me what your child's doing. And we started a conversation, and someone was standing on their own. I said, do you two know each other? But it just takes a moment to acknowledge what's going on with you and say, is this uncomfortable for me? Now, let's say you are talking to somebody, and they get a look in their eyes like they want to upgrade. You know, I've got something better to do than talk to you, those kind of people. Or those people who thrust a card in your hand. I call that a card thrust, otherwise known as a hit and run. You know, those people, it's perfectly okay to say, so nice to meet you. I'm going to go and get a drink and hope they don't come with. But I don't want you to not have a conversation because you don't know how. Just a reminder, everybody has a... Not difficult. Not difficult to remember. And then if somebody tells you something, the one thing I've noticed, how many people in this room consider themselves to be outgoing extroverts? This message is for you and you alone. For outgoing extroverts, we tend to like to talk. So what happens is somebody's telling us something, and we want to relate to them, and we go, oh, yes, that sounds great. Let me tell you about me. What do you call that? Whatever you've done, I've done better. And really, I'm just trying to relate to you. That kind of one-upping, I'm not saying don't ever do it, but don't forget, and Maya Angelou, the great poet, said it so beautifully, people don't always remember what you say. They remember the way you make them feel. And sometimes let somebody be the best at something and go, wow, that is fantastic. Instead of saying, you think that's so good, let me tell you about somebody I know. Just, wow, that's incredible. Tell me more. In what way? So I cannot stress enough in networking. Show genuine interest. Make someone feel valued. If a mentor gives you advice or guidance, and it's a great idea, say to them, that was a great idea. Thank you so much. Acknowledge them. How do you feel when somebody says to you, Tyler, thank you, that was so good. I appreciate that. That was great advice. I was doing an interview with Deepak Chopra last Sunday, and my mother told me I pursed my lips during the entire interview, and I said, thanks, Mom, that was such great advice. Thank you. Thank you. You know, that's changed my life. I appreciate that. My point is when you thank people and you validate them for giving you great advice or guidance, you bolster them. It's got to be sincere. It's got to be authentic. But networking is as much about how you make others feel, what you do for others. And sometimes you don't have a job offer for me because my career may be more accelerated than yours, but you've got advice and guidance and validation. So really shift the way you look at networking and showing genuine interest. So just as a reminder, in networking, we always want to light the fire, which is, am I feeling good about myself? Do I come across as relaxed, comfortable, confident? Alvin Toffler said this. He says, the less you need something, the more power you have. I'm going to repeat that. The less you need something, the more power you have. You don't want to go into a networking situation going, you're the person who's going to help me. As opposed to, I am a smart, brilliant, talented individual, which all of you are. I have a lot to offer you too. Don't forget to show genuine interest. It's very important that we recognize what stops us, because otherwise we can never expand from where we're at, and to do it with a level of energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. One thing I'm going to ask you all to do is to write down a current need or goal that you have. Write down or think about a current need or goal that you have in the middle of that orange piece on your flyer. Sure. How do I feel about myself? The I is show genuine interest. The R is to recognize what stops you. And the E is to engage with energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. I have no trouble if any of you want to tweet this at Nadia Bilchik says. If you want to tape it and flicker it. If you want to put it on your Pinterest. If you want to YouTube it. If you want to put it on your Google+, your Facebook, or something new that one of you probably know about that I don't. Okay. Have you all got that? How I actually came up with this acronym was after that interview with Anthony Hopkins, one of my Accenture clients said to me, Nadia, I want you to teach my senior partners how you do that. And I broke it down into the key in all interaction starts with you. And then it shows genuine interest and recognizing and engaging with energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. So does everybody written down a current need or goal that you have? I want you to think about how you're going to reach that current need or goal in terms of networking. Because the next phase is to say what or who can make that happen for you. Now, why this is a circle is there's not one way of reaching your goal. So, Cedric, do you mind sharing your current need or goal with us? So you're currently getting your PhD. So your goal is to get your PhD. So if Cedric's goal is to get his PhD, the next question is for him to plot this and say, who are the people that I need to talk to make this happen? And the reason that there's 4 arrows is there's not one way. Getting into CNN for me was my goal. And working for the Professional Development Center as a lecturer was my goal. But there are different ways of getting there. I really want you to broaden the way you see reaching your goal. Sometimes you need to ask somebody about your PhD. So in order, Cedric, for your PhD to happen, is that something, is anybody else currently doing a PhD right now? Okay. Can you stand up so Cedric can see you? Okay, take a look. Okay. May I suggest you have quite a few people to choose from, Cedric. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Cedric, take the people. Who else is wearing a white shirt? Okay? So for just a moment, as I finish today, can all the other PhD students who are wearing a white shirt, will you consult with Cedric and give him some advice and guidance as to how he should proceed? Okay? Okay. Great. Why I said white shirt is, otherwise there'll just be too much advice and guidance and it'll be overwhelming. So you've already linked up with other people. Now, obviously, the way you're going to approach them is simply saying, you're currently doing a PhD. I'm hoping to do one. What advice or guidance? And then you're going to let them talk. And then you're going to say, that was such a brilliant idea. You really helped me, right? And then you're going to follow up. Because we said networking is a connection, a conversation, but then stay in touch, because otherwise it's so tenuous. You don't even know the power of just networking with the people in your row. Just in your row right now. Are you, Danielle, sitting next to some people that you've never seen before? You don't know where they're going to be in 4 years' time. Where just your row is going to be in 4 years' time. So imagine if you stay in touch with just the people in your row. You link in with them. You stay in touch with them. They could be a way of reaching your goal. We're going to do one other, because what I want to demonstrate here is there's not one way and there's not one person. But you have to identify and be able, sometimes in networking, it's asking. What advice, guidance? I'm trying to do X. Does anybody know anybody? Does anyone in this room have a desire to get into a specific company? Okay, so let's take yours. What company are you hoping to get into? Stryker spelt? Okay. So, and your first name? Wes. You think I would have remembered because he stood up here, but that happens to any of us. And by the way, you can ask somebody shortly after you've met them, I've just had a blank. What's your name again? Just don't do it again in 3 minutes. You know what I mean? Wes. Okay, so who in this room knows anybody in Stryker? Okay, take a look, stand up. After this class, will you please meet outside, and do you mind connecting Wes to those people at Stryker? Okay, so you've got 2 arrows. So his one arrow was he was just going to Google Stryker and look at their website and see who the HR person was. The other way, Wes, and we're going to get to that now, is you could go onto my LinkedIn. Link in with me. And then say, Nadia, I see that you're linked into so-and-so on Stryker. Would you introduce me? But I want to make the point that there's a multitude of ways of getting there. So you're going to meet Wes. Cedric's going to meet the other 2. Any other people who want their problem solved right here and now? Thank you. Let's hear yours. I bet you there's somebody in this room who does. Protein and inclusion bodies. Who can help her? Who or what do you know who can point her in the right direction? Thank you, gentleman over there. Go and sit next to him right now. Okay, we've got time for one more. What I want to suggest you do is, next time you're sitting around the table, say to people, let's go round the table and let's each say what our goals are, and then the whole group. Can you imagine if we did this all day? Can you imagine what would happen? You know, I do this with big groups that I do day workshops with. Sometimes people get jobs. Sometimes people get painting contractors. Sometimes people find their husbands and wives. It's a wonderful thing. Or partners, or future partners, or ex-partners. Okay, and there was one more. Let's have yours. Right, the President's... Has anybody in this room ever got a President's Scholarship? Right, can you go and sit next to him? Fabulous. Okay, she's going to give you... She did it. She's going to give you advice or guidance. The idea behind this is we all have something to offer. It may come in the form of a connection, but it may also become in the form of guidance or a resource or an idea. So please expand what you have to offer and be a giver and an investor, but be comfortable with asking in the right way. Now, we have this wonderful thing called social media that I'm going to ask the lights to be dimmed for. Please, can you do the following? Every row is responsible for getting the names of just the people in your row. What I'm going to ask the people to do is the person wearing most of the brightest color is going to get the names of everybody. This is how it's going to work. So your name is? Wait a second. I have to have complete quiet for a moment. And as far as all the blues go, we'll just have the one that's the cleanest. Okay, so just listen to this direction for one moment. So Danielle, Taylor. So Taylor is going to get the names of all the people in her row. By the end of today, she is going to have sent out an email to all 7 people in her row. And please include me, Nadia, at Nadia Bilchik. My email is on your flyer. And the subject line must be Taylor's group or the blue group. Blue, blue, and blue. Just call it something group. You have got to promise me that you will link in with the people in your row. Why do I think LinkedIn is so important? If I put you in my database, who is responsible for keeping your information up to date? If you link in, who is responsible for keeping your information up to date? You are. We do not know the impact of having long-term connections just in this room. I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to ask you just in your rows for everybody to write down a current need or goal that you have. So Taylor's current need or goal could be? Okay, and the 7 people in your row are going to have an online discussion with you to see who or what they know who can help that happen. Why do I say LinkedIn is so important? I know some of you go, does my resume, is it good enough or big enough for LinkedIn? I will share with you right now that I work with a lot of recruiters. They are looking on LinkedIn. So if you feel that it's not enough information as yet, look at some of your peers, other students who are on LinkedIn, and see how they are phrasing their LinkedIn. But make sure you at least have a photograph so that your LinkedIn is as complete as it can be. 70% is not good enough. Try as close to 100% complete as you possibly can. And people understand. They know where you're at. But 100% complete LinkedIn profile is an absolute necessity. It is your online resume. It is so critical. It is getting increasingly critical. There are a whole lot of new features that LinkedIn has just introduced, like this one, where you can follow industries. Is everybody aware of this? Who in this room is a LinkedIn aficionado? Thank you. Do you know about this new feature? And please add LinkedIn aficionados. In fact, can I have one LinkedIn aficionado at that mic? And can I have the other LinkedIn aficionado on that mic? Take a good look at them. If you take them out for a cup of coffee, they will help you with your LinkedIn. But there's one caveat. If you invite them for coffee because you want them to help you with their LinkedIn, pay for the coffee. So do you mind going to that, Mike? Just because I want you to add anything else about LinkedIn. And take a look. You can follow, and I've got their bioengineering. You can follow on LinkedIn, and it's a great resource for resources and knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Anything you want to add to that?
I get probably weekly emails asking or talking about job discussions or jobs I might be interested in, and it's really opened me up to even different company types. So I mean, that's helped me network. I've gotten emails from recruiters that say, hey, we're not really looking for jobs yet. Do you know anybody, or are you interested?
Okay. So your firm recommendation, if you don't mind just staying there as we go through these are various people in biotech, in bioengineering, and with BMES on LinkedIn. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because given your demographic and your brilliance, this is fairly elementary for you. I spoke on Monday at the Network of Executive Women. The average age was 40. I had to stop slowly after each slide. Searching people on LinkedIn, you know that. The key thing is having the best possible resume and getting somebody proficient to help you. The one thing that I find on LinkedIn, and here's all people within the biotech, bioengineering industry, the one thing that I still find people don't do on LinkedIn is the following. Would you agree? They still forget to customize their online networking. Now, obviously, if something in your invitation to me says BMES, I know who you are here, I'm going to say yes. But if you're reaching out to somebody, I just heard you speak at, I look forward to the opportunity to linking in. I wouldn't go up to Danielle or to Wes or to Cedric and go, can you give me access to your network? In the same way as you don't do it in person, don't do it online. Customize your online networking. Anything you want to add to that?
I would definitely agree with the invite. Don't go with the cookie cutter response that they provide. I saw you. Will you please join my network?
Excellent. And as far as Facebook goes, I know I'm speaking to an entire generation here who understands the advantages of Facebook as a fantastic networking tool, but who also understands the disadvantages of your Facebook in terms of HR search. And I cannot tell you, even with all of this, how often HR people say, I searched somebody, we were going to hire them, I checked out their Facebook, there was something that was unsavory, we didn't. I personally, but again, I'm a well over 45-year-old, my Facebook and my personal and professional is integrated. For most of you, I'm assuming your Facebook is personal. But don't underestimate Facebook, and certainly when it comes to finding your organization's Facebook fan page. Anything you want to add to that?
Privacy on pictures.
Privacy on pictures. And even with that, we did a CNN story recently about the University of Texas, Austin, Texas students. I don't know if any of you saw that. They were in a particular chorus, and the organizer pasted on the Facebook page, the administrator, all the people in the specific chorus, and some of the kids didn't want their parents to know what they were doing. So, I mean, you cannot be careful enough. And more company's Facebook page, finding your company on Twitter. Now, fairly elementary, but if LinkedIn is your business meeting of social media, the way to network, and don't wait. If you meet someone in the passage, go home, met you in the passage, great to interact. It's part of the long-term maintenance. Link in with them because they keep their data up to date then. I just got a whole lot of work from ESPN because I was linked in to Tanya Cornelius, who was the OD person at Turner, who is now at ESPN. But my point that I want to make is if LinkedIn is your cocktail party, no, LinkedIn is your business meeting, Facebook is your cocktail party, and Twitter is your soapbox, right? So I have used Twitter to network in the following way. I will search somewhere where I am going to speak, and I'll see who is attending that conference. So I recently looked up hashtag ERC, Employee Relocation Conference. And I meet somebody called Michelle Sandlin, and we converse on Twitter. I get her phone number. I arrive in Chicago at the event, and there are no rooms. and they say to me, oh, you know what, we're going to have to give you an upgrade. I walk into this room in Chicago. There is a marble floor, a piano, a billiard table, 2 fireplaces, 3 bedrooms, and a fully stocked free bar. The only person I know is Michelle Sandlin. So I call her. She says, Nadia, I'm in the bar downstairs. Do you want to come? I say, no, but do you want to come up? Now she thinks I'm really strange. She walks up to my room. She says, who are you? I said, no, I just got an upgrade because, anyway, she says, I'm inviting the rest of the conference up. We had the best party because, you know, networking with vodka, it's a wonderful thing. 20 minutes free. So my point was in person to online, online to in person. But at least follow your industry on Twitter, even if you aren't tweeting. And we spoke about networking as much about being a go-giver as a go-getter. Retweet people that you want to give back to, or recommend them on LinkedIn. If you've got a particular professor or somebody you want to have access to after your meeting, recommend them on LinkedIn and say, so enjoyed meeting with so-and-so. They were so gracious, and they will get that recommendation. Now, I'm sure you've all noticed, right? There's a new LinkedIn endorsement tool which makes it very easy to endorse somebody.
I haven't seen that a whole lot.
Are some of you getting more endorsements than ever before? It must be very easy because I got about 15 in one day. So I think what happens is there's like 3 things you can click. Check it out.
Okay.
Okay, so finding contacts. My other lovely Twitter story is I was on the plane recently, and there was a man sitting next to me that I thought I have to get to know. He had more diamonds in his platinum Rolex than I've ever seen. So I tried all my conversational techniques. I tried it's so hot in here, it's so cold in here, aren't you pleased you're finally on the plane? Where are you going to? Anyway, it didn't work. Finally, I fell asleep. I woke up, the basket of M&Ms came around, and I started eating them. I said, I can't remember last time I had an M&M. We start chatting. We start talking about Twitter. This particular man has 2.5 million Twitter followers, now 3.5 million. He writes to his Twitter following, you must meet at Nadia Bilchik. She's dope. I had never heard the word dope. It was Jim Jones, the rapper. By the time I got to my car, 150 new Twitter followers. Every time I will say, just spoke to the amazing students of BMES. They are extraordinary, as Jim Jones Kappa would say, dope. I'll get another 500 followers. You see, you never know. So finding contact, finding info, keeping current with blogs. So I know I'm speaking to the generation of the converted, but I just want to ask everyone in this room, are you using it as well as you should? And are you maximizing it? And there's YouTube, and there's Flickr, and it goes on. So any other thoughts before I show you my final video of the day, because I know we don't have very long, do we, Terry? We have a few more minutes. So at this point, are there any questions about networking, about meeting a stranger, about having an appointment with somebody, about CNN? Any thoughts, any questions? Yes. I'd love your thoughts on that. So what don't you put on your LinkedIn? Thank you. And obviously, whatever company you land up working for in any capacity, make sure that you know what their legalities are around it. And could the two of you chat later, afterwards? Do you mind for a few minutes standing there for any Twitter questions and LinkedIn questions? Thank you. LinkedIn questions. I'll appreciate that just because I say all good presentations should start on time and end early, and everyone's delighted. So I want to share with you an experience that I had during the World Cup soccer. Anybody remember World Cup soccer in South Africa? Sunny South Africa, and I was sitting in the cold CNN newsroom. And one of my colleagues came to me and said, Nadia, there's some South African sayings I'd love you to go on air and talk about. Now, why I want to mention this is the colleague that gave me the opportunity you're about to see was not a higher up, wasn't management, wasn't a boss, was a colleague, was a friend that I'd gone out of my way to invest in. And really just that reminder that so often our career opportunities come just because of our attitude of generosity and who we are as somebody who is a resource to others. So it was Josh Levs, my friend and colleague, who asked me to do this.
All right, so people from all over the world have crowded into South Africa, and those of you watching anywhere in the world are hearing coverage from South Africa. You're probably hearing some terms that you're not familiar with. I know I am. So I asked to join me Nadia Bilchik, our editorial producer, who is from South Africa, an anchor from South Africa. You know every piece of lingo.
And I'm so excited to teach you, Josh Lev, something. That's a first.
Well, we're going to start off with the only expression that I'm actually familiar with here, all right? Take a look at this one. How's it? Help me out.
Hello, how's it? Now, how's it is a great South African expression because it's really a combination of hello, how are you? And we go, hello, how's it, Josh? Which means how are you doing? Okay. And it means hello, how are things going in your life?
So if I meet someone, they say, hello, how's it? Do I say, I'm fine, how's it? Or do I say just
You just say, how's it, how's it?
Just how's it, how's it?
Okay. It's everything. It just says it all. And it's universal across demographic lines, color lines. Everybody knows how's it.
Gets a lot harder from here. Now I have no clue what we're talking about. What's that?
Aish is an expression of exclamation, which is either aish or aish. So let's say you see a great goal, you go aish, and it just means, oh my goodness. In other words, oy vey.
But what if, oy vey. See, this one I'm familiar with. So if it's good or it's bad, you can go aish.
Aish.
All right, let's do the next one here.
Aina, it's so, oh, that looks Aina. Josh, you've hurt your knee. Aina. Now, if I'm in pain, I go Aina. And if you're in pain, I go Aina.
So Aina's a bad thing. It's like agony.
Aina is pain, agony.
Agony.
So, Aina.
Aina. All right, now help me out with this one.
Lekker. Now, lekker in Afrikaans makes a candy or a sweet. So, lekker is awesome. It's awesome. It's lekker. It's amazing. It's fantastic.
That game was lekker.
That jol was lekker.
Lekker.
You look lekker, my China. That's a lekker tie.
Oh, you look lekker. Does she look like lekker? Lekker.
Yes, and the whole World Cup has been a lekker experience for the whole country.
Oh, my goodness. All right, now one more, which is the ultimate stumper.
Nooit. No, I can't believe it. Not possible. He did that game. He did that nooit.
Like no way in a bad
way. No way, either good or bad. You see, that's why these things, nooit. I don't believe you. You know how people say, I don't believe you. Nooit.
So help me out. Nooit?
Nooit.
Nooit.
Nooit, my China, my buddy, my booty, my friend.
Oh, my goodness. Well, there's a list of a lot more.
Next week, we have to do the South African handshake. I have to teach you the South African handshake.
That's coming next week.
There are things that are very universal to South Africa, and not South Africa, South Africa.
South Africa.
South Africa.
I can't even say the country right. I posted a long list of lingo for you right here at my Facebook page, Josh Lev CNN. I'm also tweeting it out, Josh Lev CNN. Go ahead and let us know your favorite South African expressions. Nadia, thank you.
Buy a donkey.
Oh, my goodness, I'm so lost.
Okay, well, thank you all. I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. Please remember two things. One, Oscar Wilde said, you may as well like yourself because everyone else is already taken. And Napoleon Hill said, the world has a way of making place for people who look like they know where they're going. So I'm going to ask everyone to take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3. Thank you all so much.